And today I'm going to be joined by my counterparts here, my co host here of the Two Shots podcast. We're going to be joined by the birthday boy himself, the OG, the one and only Rudy Campos Jr. Rudy, happy birthday, my friend.
Thank you. I normally don't celebrate my birthday because I hate getting older, but I think I'll celebrate a little bit today.
Yeah, you're a little low, Rudy. I don't know why, but the mic sounds a little low.
Let's see. Better now?
Hung over already.
Yeah, no, he's hung
Yeah,
over already, Josh.
hung over now.
Yeah,
How's
that
that sound?
sounds better.
Okay.
All right. And we're also going to be joined by Josh Paredes. He is a writer for both Air Alamo and Project Spurs. And he also helps me do a little show of ours that's actually gotten good traction on YouTube called the Spurs Rewind. So, Josh, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm just hanging out, reading about the Spurs and seeing what they're up to. It's a lot of madness in the past few days, so I'm good.
Yeah, it is a lot of madness. So, we're going to go ahead and talk about the latest Spurs rumors first before we start getting into the free agency talk and what's really been lighting up social media all day yesterday. It started around maybe, I don't know, maybe 1 in the morning, maybe 12:30ish. We had people talking about Ben Simmons coming to the San Antonio Spurs. There was a lot of chatter all over social media. I believe it started on Reddit first, then it just worked its way to Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere, on Instagram, anywhere you turned around. It even made its ways, believe it or not, onto the national stage where you had people talking about it at the national level on podcasts that had to do with Sirius XM NBA. They were talking about Ben Simmons coming to the Spurs, and that was a guest that they had on. I believe it was Antonio Daniels was talking about the chatter that he's heard as well. So realistically, Josh, we talked about this on Spurs Rewind. How is it? How likely is it that we're actually going to see Ben Simmons come to the San Antonio Spurs?
Very unlikely. I would say the combination of Maury's expectations for what he should get for Simmons and how conservative the Spurs are and how they're loyal to some their guys, and it's just very unlikely that there will be an agreement that would satisfy both. So, I mean, I feel like these are all it's kind of just the chatter that you'll see around big names. And you'll usually see it start from somewhere like Bleacher Report. And then you'll see someone like a local Spurs beat writer or someone, kind of give it more traction. And then all of a sudden you'll see it on Spurs memes on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. And that's just the nature of having a big name out there when the Spurs really don't get those.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if it happens, I would be very surprised. I mean, anything is possible, I guess, especially when you're in a real rebuilding phase. But I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see it either, but we do have one of our frequent listeners watching right now on Facebook, should I say. Her name is Doris Campano Basco. Thanks for watching, Doris. And she put, yes, I know, Doris. She goes, Joe, barbecue is back. That's the nickname I give Brent Forbes because I would say he gets cooked in the paint or gets cooked defensively. So I said, yeah, it's the return of good old barbecue. And she's putting on here as well. She goes, no way, Ben Simmons. And I was like, I think that's the consensus here. But we're going to go to Rudy next. Rudy, what are your thoughts on everybody saying what's going to be happening, as far as Ben Simmons coming to the San Antonio Spurs?
The likelihood of Ben Simmons coming to San Antonio obviously is not great. I mean, but you can't rule it out. I mean, you go look in the offseason, the players that you added, majority are shooters. I mean, so you're surrounding your team with shooting. A guy like Ben Simmons would actually fit in San Antonio with that kind of perimeter shooting that is available now for the Spurs. But let me ask y'all guys this. This is where I kind of looked at it. With Ben Simmons basically saying he stops all communication with Philadelphia, you have to go through my agent. Philly is actually backed up into a corner now because Daryl Morey wanted all these draft picks and first rounders, and I want a superstar, yada yada. Well, now knowing that Ben Simmons wants nothing to do with you, that kind of puts them in a bad situation. In other words, I don't care what you get in return, get something in return because I'm not playing for you ever again. That's the type of mentality he's got right now. So to say that it's possible that the Spurs or another organization can trade for him, I think it's very likely now. I mean, a lot of fans don't want Ben Simmons here, but when you've got a a really good defender, one of the better defenders in the league coming, a really good distributor of the ball, a point guard mentality. Yeah, he can't shoot a lick, but you have shooters surrounding him now. So it kind of makes sense for the Spurs. And the talk about him going to Golden State, you got to keep in mind these contenders that he may be rumored to don't have the cap space. They're going to have to give up a major contract. You're talking a guy that is making like 36, 37, then 38 and 40 million in the next 4 years. You've got to give up some big time coin. And these top contenders are not going to give up their main guys for Ben Simmons. So you're looking at a team that's probably on the rebound or actually a rebuild to make a move towards Ben Simmons. And one of those places is right here in the 2-0.
Yeah, hey, can you turn your volume up a little more, Rudy? You're kind of low still, dude.
Okay, we good there?
Yeah, it sounds a lot better. Yeah, so
Okay.
Harley Trevino watching us from Twitter right now. She says, realistic trade scenarios for Ben. Would y'all consider adding one or two of the young core to do so? And that's the thing, though, with Ben Simmons. You see, he's a project player. And like Josh had said, he shouldn't really be at this point in his career. You really wouldn't want to take on a project player who is a very good defensive player, defensive player of the year candidate here. Bring him in here and then what? Have to work with him on his shot? If he's not already doing this on his own accord, it's going to be a stretch to go ahead and try to break old habits at this point in his career and his development. It's going to take a lot, not only from him, but out of the organization. And he's unproven. You've seen what happens to him in big time critical game situations, especially when he was with the 76ers and they needed him the most. He passed up wide open shots, deferring the ball instead of trying to take a shot, so that's in question there. If you're going to go ahead and bring up a player who is an certified NBA All-Star to come to the San Antonio Spurs just for the sake of adding an NBA superstar to the team, I think this is the wrong fit for the team. Currently, right now, as the Spurs are constructed, they have a great young core of players that are inexperienced. I get that we don't have a superstar, but to me, Ben Simmons would just be kind of a reach at this point. I don't really care to see him with the San Antonio Spurs. I would rather that the Spurs wait until next season. They can go ahead and then at that point decide to go ahead and move on from these 1-year contracts that they did pick up from the Chicago Bulls. And what Thaddeus Young and Aminu, they're on 1-year contracts. So we could collectively have them for 1 year, go ahead and get them off the books, and then go ahead and check, take a good look to see what we have as far as our roster positions and possibly use some of that as collateral to go ahead and make more cap space and make a trade and see what we can get. Maybe we can go after a certified NBA superstar at that point in time. Either way, I think the Spurs are still set up for success come next season. But let's go ahead and talk about some of the moves they made in this offseason. Josh, we're going to go ahead and go to you because there's some names that we didn't get to mention yesterday on the Spurs Rewind that I think we should mention right off the bat. And one of those being Doug McDermott.
Yes, I mean, he's definitely one of the key signings, I think. Career 40% shooter from downtown. We had nobody do that last season. Rudy Gay was the best 3-point shooter for the Spurs, sadly enough, and that was like around 38%. I'm sure Derek White might have, made a case if he was able to play more than half the season. But you just look at his numbers here. I mean, 39% last year, 43.5 before that, 41. He shot 50% in Dallas the few games that he was there. I mean, we're talking about somebody that fills a serious need for the Spurs right now. When you talk about how they were like 24th in accuracy and last in attempts, which is kind of a running thing we see when you're talking about the Spurs and shooting. You're going to see those stats because they stand out so much. You saw their reloading. They got Wisekamp to help with that. They got even Jock Landale, the big, he can shoot threes. So Landale and McDermott are going to be two that I'm really looking forward to seeing. And Landale had an okay night against the USA. He had some impressive stuff. I think Pop was talking a little bit about him after the game. So yeah, a lot of exciting talent that they're adding. Of course, not a superstar yet, but I mean, You don't just get them every day, you know.
Dougie McBuckets, I think, was a solid addition. While he's not sexy, I had talked about this, I think, in a previous episode when we are talking about, free agents that could possibly fit with the San Antonio Spurs and could come at a decent price. And I remember I mentioned Doug McDermott. I think it was either with you guys or with Jeff Garcia with Locked On Spurs. We were talking about free agency. And I was happy when we got Doug McDermott. I was like, I like him. I think he's a solid addition, a solid role player. Rudy, what did you think about Dougie McBuckets? Were you happy to get him? And we have some comments here. Let's go ahead and pitch right now to Thomas Vega watching us on Facebook. He says, hopefully Doug's shots fall for us this season. Well, I think they will.
That'd be nice.
He's kind of proven that he can knock down an outside shot. And he's also saying, I got a glimpse of Landale last night. I think we all did. And we're excited about the possibilities that are, Landale coming to San Antonio. He's the enforcer. So, Rudy, what are your thoughts on Dougie McBuckets?
With Doug, it's probably a great thing. I mean, we needed a shooter. We got a shooter. There were so many shooters out there. You had Duncan Robinson as well. The rumors of Larry Markkinen coming was another one. But to get Dougie, one of the league's best shooters, is a bonus. It fills a position and a spot on the Spurs roster that we needed to fill. But also adding the addition of other shooters like when Joshua Primo through the draft. I mean, he's got a silky smooth stroke. Joe Weisenkamp through the draft as well. We able to get shooters in, but the sign of Doug, I mean, it's tremendous. It's huge. It's going to actually allow players like DeJounte and Derek and Keldon to attack the basket a lot more. And you're not going to have a lot of guys just camping underneath, under the basket, because they know that none of these guys can shoot. A lot of these guys now can't shoot with those shooters that we got. So future looks bright. I love the McDermott signing. I mean, it's really, really big. But I also look at the whole, back thing, because what y'all were saying a little while before is we don't have a superstar, and we don't have a superstar.
No.
And I kind of play that devil's advocate on a lot of stuff, because if you have a potential to get a superstar, do you owe it to your fans to go and get that superstar to build around? I mean, I think if you're waiting till next summer, I mean, some of these superstars are probably going to sign extensions. A lot of them aren't going to be jumping ship to go to come to San Antonio. If you've got a player that can potentially get you another maybe 10 wins, I mean, I don't know if you can pass that up, especially with the weapons that you added in the offseason already. It makes sense to try to get a star or superstar to build around. So adding McDermott, adding, a lot of these other guys, it just makes it even much more possibility to try and go get a person to come in here and run this team. Not saying DeJounte can't, but to get a person in here who's already got the experience, who's already been, an all-star, stuff like that. To me, it just makes sense to go and get him, because these guys that you're adding, we're going to need someone to be a playmaker for him in order to get Doug open, to get, Primo acclimated and all this stuff. So, I mean, great additions, but I still think we need that one facilitator here that is going to bring it all together.
So are you sold on Ben Simmons being a franchise superstar?
No, not a franchise superstar, but I am sold on the fact that he can make the game easier for everybody that you brought in and you currently have.
Okay, fair
Gotcha.
enough.
So let's go ahead and talk about a new signing that the Spurs got as well. While San Antonio Spurs fans had delusions of grandeur, we wanted John Collins, and me included. I was rooting for John Collins. I want John Collins. The Hawks offered him, a qualifying offer, 5 years, 125 mil. We thought, hey, maybe the Spurs can offer him a max deal, or see what they can work out. Unfortunately, it was not to be, and we got the wrong Collins. We got Zach Collins instead, much to the dismay of Spurs fans. While to me, he can have an upside as far as a role on the team, the only thing that we do have a big question mark about Zach Collins is his durability, as he has suffered injuries in the past, and he's just coming off a broken foot injury that he suffered last season. To me, this is the biggest gamble for the San Antonio Spurs as far as what they did in free agency by going after one Zach Collins. While his numbers aren't sexy, he can do some things for you. out there on the court, maybe do some of the little things that go unnoticed. He could probably be a backup at times. He can play power. He can play the power forward position or the center, maybe backing up Jakob Portal, or who knows what's going to happen with Drew Eubanks if he winds up leaving because the Spurs need to make some cap space. They can go ahead and put in Zach Collins, and there you go. There's your backup center / power forward, depending on injury or lineup changes. Rudy, what do you think about this signing of Zach Collins? Was this one that just jumped out at you and said, this is a sexy pick, or were you more like, this is a reach?
Actually, neither, Joe. I mean, it's not a sexy pick, and to me, it wasn't a reach. You got Zach Collins at a pretty good offer, at a pretty good deal. I mean, you can't really complain with the money-wise. I mean, you got him at a really good deal. He's more experienced than a Drew Eubanks already. So you had people saying, we need a big guy, we need a big guy. Okay, so you went and got a big guy. I've seen people say, well, I mean, we have Drew Eubanks. It's kind of the same thing. Like, actually, no, it's not. Zach is actually a better player. I'm talking a guy that was drafted, in the lottery, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the year he was drafted. You cannot fault a person for having injuries. I mean, injuries happen and are part of the game. It's how you bounce back from those injuries. One of the better training staffs in the league is the San Antonio Spurs. So who better to rehab and rehabilitate, a Zach Collins would be than the Spurs training staff. They've got one of the best in the league, if not the best. So yeah. I don't think it's a reach at all. The money was good right there. I don't have any problems with that. I have actually no problems with any signing because for where you signed a Zach Collins, you added the Jock Landale out of Australia. So you added more depth, and you added a player that looks like he's going to come in and be like that rock and roll, that punk rock guy that's just going to come in, be a bruiser, former Bruise Brothers back in the day. The old Spurs fans like myself know about the Bruise Brothers. Just someone who's going to come in, just make a stamp, put a stamp on the Spurs roster here. But no issues at all with Zach Collins. And the whole John Collins thing, without knowing exactly what the offer was, because I saw 4 years at $120 million, that's more money than what the Hawks are paying him. Because you're looking at 5 at 125, that's what, 25. If it was 4 at 130, that's $30 million a year. Fans got to realize it's not about the money a lot of times. You can offer him the world. But it's at this point in time, if you're going to get about the same amount of money and have a chance at a title in Atlanta or rebuild in San Antonio, why not get your title and the money at the same time? So I never fault John Collins for making that decision at all. Yeah,
well, that's the flip side of things, too, is that free agents have to want to come here to San Antonio. Yeah. San Antonio can offer them max deals. At the end of the day, does that said player want to play with this particular team? Because you're coming over here and you know what's to be expected. The Spurs have missed the playoffs the last 2 seasons. You're coming into a reloaded, rebuilding kind of phase. And some players, especially big name free agents, they want to play in the playoffs. They want to play for a chip, and that might necessarily be here in San Antonio. So, it is what it is at this juncture. And Josh, what were your feelings about Zach Collins?
Well, first, you make a great point about people wanting to come here. And this is kind of why I've been on Twitter kind of bashing people that are all over Brian Wright. I'm not saying he's the world's best GM or anything, but you got people trying to be like, why didn't we get John Collins and Ben Simmons and, Markkanen, or at least 2 of those 3? Well, a lot of the time it's because they don't want to come here. And it's not something that, he has that disadvantage because you see every summer or even during trade season, everybody's wanting to go to Brooklyn or New York or LA or Miami. And that's just the name of the game. And you have to try to do the only way you can, which is just build up through the draft and through role players that can kind of get a feel for each other and start to build something. And this is kind of where we're at with the Spurs right now. So it's just really frustrating to see people expect the Spurs to just magically be able to get a superstar for nothing, or just that it's going to be so easy, because it's not.
Or that they get to be coached by one Coach Popovich. That's not cutting it anymore.
Right. Yeah, it's his fault. Now that he doesn't have any, Hall of Fame players, then Pop is just a bad coach. That's why he's in a gold medal game. But anyway, so about Collins, yeah, like Rudy pretty much covered it. It's a small risk. I also don't like when people say, oh, we got glass ankles over here, or Derek White needs to be wrapped in the bubble. It's like they're not purposely getting injured. It's just part of the game. It's unfortunately it happens to people more often than others. It doesn't mean they're not conditioned or they're not taking care of their bodies. I can step out of the room right now and twist my ankle. It doesn't mean I'm not, keeping myself in shape. So it's just, yeah, it's a small gamble. I mean, he should hopefully be back by, I'm hearing maybe December or January, maybe at the earliest. So we'll see what he can do. I certainly think he's a better fit than Eubanks. I think Eubanks is a decent player, but I think I mentioned he's not really, he doesn't really stick out to me in this roster. He's probably one of the expendable bigs if we have to go that route.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you in that regard. If you need to make some cap space, well, he's the little man on the totem pole. Unfortunately, you absorb that and you just say, "I gotta let you go, man. It's part of the business." But we have a user here that's watching, or a viewer here that's watching on Facebook. Shout out to you, Frank Ramirez. He's been one of our biggest supporters. Thank you for watching the show. He puts, Joe, what do you think about Forbes coming back? And we're going to get into that. I think this is the one that really threw everybody for a loop because I was about to go to bed and I'm laying down and then I'm like, you did what? I had to look at this a couple times just to make sure that I wasn't getting sham, I was like, am I really reading this correctly? And I had to look for the blue check mark and I had to go through to another couple sources to make sure that this in fact was legit. And yes, the Spurs brought back good old barbecue, Bryn Forbes. The reason that I call him barbecue, he's either going to get cooked in the paint or he's going to get cooked on the defensive end. Everybody sees it happening. And they're like, Bryn Forbes in that game again. Oh no, the Spurs 10-point lead is going to all but evaporate. And sure enough, that's more than likely that's what happens. Or they put him in critical game situations down the stretch in the fourth. And what happens? The opposing team cooks Bryn Forbes because he's the weak link in the chain from a defensive perspective. I get it. For all his defensive deficiencies, the one thing that he does very well is shoot the ball great from beyond the arc. And I think that's why they brought him back, because he is a one of the better three-point shooters that the Spurs had prior to his exit. Bringing him back, you're filling a need that the team desperately needs to fill, and that is three-point shooting. We'll start with you, Rudy. What was your reaction of the return of the prodigal son, Bryn Forbes?
I was surprised, like everybody else was.
Oh, and Will Clark brought up something good, Rudy. You say his name right. Champion Bryn Forbes at that.
Champion Bryn Forbes. I was surprised. Now, I wasn't as shocked as draft night that everybody else was, but I was definitely shocked to see Bryn Forbes signing back with the Spurs. But it comes down to one word, man. That's shooting. I mean, you saw the glaring need that this team needed, and that was shooters. So what did they do? They went out and addressed it, and they got shooters. And Bryn Forbes is one of the better shooters in the game. So as I can understand why they did it, I also was kind of shocked that there weren't better options out there. But again, he's not going to come expensive. He's going to come on a team-friendly deal.
We don't know what the numbers look like yet. They haven't been released.
Yeah, they haven't been released, but I don't think he's going to get, a 2-year, $10 million deal or $20 million deal, per year or something. So I think it's a team-friendly deal. It makes sense for him to come back here. They need a shooter. It's like, well, I've seen people say, well, it takes over for Patty. And it kind of does. I mean, he takes over the Patty Mills row.
But then you have the flip side of the Spurs fan saying, why didn't we just keep Patty? Instead of signing Bryn Forbes.
and I can honestly give my take on that. You don't keep Patty. Why? Because, yes, Patty's a champion, but you want to give up Patty the opportunity towards the end of his career to try to win another title somewhere. Going to Brooklyn is that reason why. He's going to a team that he can come in, help out in a championship role. That's why Patty left the team. You're bringing Bryn back because Bryn is younger, and he can fill that Patty role when it comes to shooting. That's why Bryn came back. So I was shocked, but I'm not as shocked as, number 12, Josh Primo being selected by the Spurs type shocked. But either way, it was a good move. Like I said, I have zero problems with every single move they made. They all made sense on paper. There were some head scratchers, but they all made sense on paper. So congrats, Bryn. We get you for another year or two.
Well, I'm going to ask you a different question, though, Josh, as we start coming to you. But some of these comments are pretty funny. PJ Hoops puts Forbes better not take minutes from the young guys. You already know what's about to happen. They're bringing him back for a reason, man. You know exactly what's going to happen there. And Frank Ramirez says, "I thought he thought about me when they announced that Bryn Forbes was coming back." He says, "I seen it. Good old barbecue." Will Clark, he put on here. He's watching from Twitter. He puts Bryn probably going to be used better this go around. I hope so. And then we have another comment here from Twitter from a user called Think No Walls. Look, hippie life. Love that tag name, by the way. If you use one of our guards, if one of our guards gets traded, he knows the offense. Just saying, he does. He has a lot of Spurs knowledge. He knows the system. So I understand the allure of bringing him back. I'm going to ask you a question though, Josh. The thing is, why did they sign Bryn and why didn't they keep Patty? Well, the thing is, Spurs fans have to remember something. Patty has to want to stay with the
Yeah.
San Antonio Spurs. Maybe they offered, he declined because at this stage of his career, he wants to go ahead and play for another championship. And it indicates that maybe was really important to him by signing with the Nets on a 2-year deal. That he wants to go ahead and try to win a championship. He didn't necessarily sign up for a rebuild, So your thoughts on Bryn Forbes returning and Patty Mills leaving?
I mean, you both just pretty much nailed it with the Patty situation. It was time for both sides. It's not like he was unhappy here. Obviously, I think he was perfectly fine with the entire situation being within the Spurs organization. But it's getting later in his career, and it's time to contend. And that might not be something the Spurs are going to be doing in the next year or two. So as far as Forbes, I mean, I touched about it on Spurs Rewind recently when we were talking. It's just about whether they utilize him correctly. If Pop's gonna be running him out for 25 minutes, 30 minutes a night, that's just regressing back to what the issue was when him and Marco and LaMarcus and DeMar were all on the court and there were glaring holes everywhere. So if he's used right, which is very limited, and when the Spurs need a spark on offense, and when he has guys that can make up for his defensive issues, that can block at the rim, that's the way to use him. There's still a use for him. 45% shooting on a season is no joke. So I'm not saying I think it would be ridiculous just to completely say this is just garbage and he should never see the floor. He still has a role. Just about using him correctly, which means kind of limited. But I do remember a tweet during the playoffs where I shared Bryn just absolutely getting lost on the perimeter, just one-on-one. And his man gets to the rim, and Giannis just comes up with the most ridiculous from behind block. And I was like, this is why he works in Milwaukee. So if we have somebody like that can do that in San Antonio, that can cover for his mistakes, that's tall enough, that can defend in the rim whenever that happens, then it'll be fine. But the question is if we do.
Yeah, somebody's asking right here. They said, "Who are we trading? Who are we releasing?" And I think he's referring to the trade that just occurred yesterday. It was kind of some of the details were released, and I saw it here on basically Twitter on my tweet deck here. And what happened is that the Wizards and the Spurs had this big old trade with the Indiana Pacers, and then the Lakers pick that basically all it was is that the Spurs were releasing the rights to Molotov, basically a guy that Molotov that they had drafted years ago. They're releasing his rights, and what the Wizards are sending us in return for the Spurs releasing those rights to said player is we're going to get a second round pick, and we're also getting, what was the name of the player? It eludes me right here.
Oh, it was
Hutchinson. Yeah, Hutchinson. We're getting him in return. Now, are we going to get him on the team? I don't know. Maybe it's just going to be something that we absorb and, we go ahead and let the guy go, So basically that's what the Spurs are getting in return for releasing the rights to, how do you say his name? Molotov or something like that. Yeah. So that's basically what we're getting in return for that. But circling back now to some of the other assets that the Spurs have added One of the things that I think they did that was very savvy by Brian Wright is adding Landale, Jock Landale, who is the center for the Australian Olympic team right now. You saw him play yesterday against Team USA when they were playing Team Australia. And I got to tell you, I think this was a smart move by the San Antonio Spurs. They're addressing the issue of size and also, more importantly, somebody who can kind of be that enforcer role out there on the court, which is something that the Spurs were sorely lacking. A presence inside the paint, somebody that's going to bang inside the paint, be that kind of big banger, the enforcer. And the guy can shoot. He can shoot a mid-range jumper. He can shoot a three. I'm going to say I think this was a smart move by the San Antonio Spurs. And most importantly, the thing is they added size and they addressed a little bit of their shooting issues in a big, and they winded up getting him at a right price at a good price because from what I remember and I was reading on social media is that he was playing with the chip on his shoulder because he felt he should have been in the NBA sooner. Now that the Spurs went ahead and made him the offer he accepted, he actually took a pay cut to come and play with the San Antonio Spurs to show what he can do at the NBA level. So I like this because the guy is both hungry and he's angry, Rudy. You got to get mean. You got to get angry. You got to want it. So I think he's going to play with the chip on his shoulder and really surprise us this season. What are your thoughts on Jock Landale?
Landale, I mean, I can easily sell you on Jock Landale. I mean, you're talking about a guy who played for, I believe it was St. Mary's University, same university as one Patty Mills, 4-year player there. I mean, the guy, look at his averages as a senior: 21 points a game, 10 rebounds, 1.1 blocks per game. I mean, the guy can obviously play. You're talking about an MVP of the NBL, champion in the NBL as well. I mean, he's only, what, 25, 26 years old? I mean, this kid is a monster. He can shoot, he can defend, he can do all the good things. It's going to take him a little while to get accustomed to, obviously, the Spurs system and to get accustomed to NBA ball. But he's had experience. He's played with the Atlanta Hawks, I believe, in the summer league, as well as the Milwaukee Bucks recently. The kid can play. I mean, let's be real. He can play. He was a pretty decent collegiate. I think he was Player of the Year in the WCC for, I can't remember the year, but I think he was a Player of the Year in the WCC one year. But I'm excited. I mean, you get a big guy who is an ideal person and who can fit for the San Antonio Spurs moving forward, and he's young. I mean, he's really young and he's enthused. He's excited. This is the kind of player that the Spurs need down low.
Yeah, so pitching to you next, Josh. What do you think about adding Jock? You got to love the name Jock Landale, to the team. What do you think of him?
Yeah, just from the name alone, I like the signing. Looking into it and reading up and seeing his highlights, it's very exciting. I think I mentioned before he might be the signing of the offseason for the Spurs. He has everything that you would want this team needs, like especially from the big man position. We've kind of talked about how Pirtle can be a little timid on the floor. He's a great defensive player, but he doesn't have a lot of intensity and passion, and like he's going to be the enforcer on the team, which is fine. But now that the Spurs have something like that, that's going to be a good sign. You always kind of want that junkyard dog kind of guy in your team, especially if you want to, you have a bunch of young guys and people just kind of, everybody's going to have to get used to this new, the veterans are all gone. So adding someone like him, I think, is going to be a big deal. I think it was a great signing by Wright.
Yeah, we had a comment here by our friend Frank Ramirez. He was saying he's watching us on Facebook right now, and he had brought up a good point. He says, he goes, Aaron Baines, he's available now, that he was released by the Toronto Raptors. They said, bring him back, yes or no? I don't know, man. I mean, goes another guy that's, knows the Spurs system, but really, do we want to bring him back again for another go around? Probably not. There's a reason he is being released by the Toronto Raptors.
Not after Jock.
Yeah, Jock. I think we got a better player.
You're already paying Jakob Poeltl, and it's basically the same player.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no
Baines
reason to
can't
pay.
shoot, but
Baines can't shoot. But, I mean, primarily you're going to have a big man down low that's going to be the exact same as Jakob Poeltl. So I mean, both guys can set tremendous screens. Both guys can get to the rim. Both guys can bang down low. You cannot pay both guys the same amount of money. So there's just no way to do it.
Yeah, it was Notorious ADD that said that. Watching us from Twitter right now, he said, "Bring back Aaron Baines, yes or no?" So I think it's an emphatic no from all of us. Yeah, the guy had a good run here in San Antonio. We got rid of him just in time, and he went on to better things. Hopefully, now that I don't know if he's even going to be playing in the NBA. Maybe he'll be one of these players that had a good run, but he's going to go ahead and go overseas to the Shanghai Sharks or something.
Yeah. It goes back to like even Boban. I love Boban to death, but
You wouldn't want him
it's
back.
just I would take him back just because I'm a huge fan of his. But does it make sense for what the Spurs are trying to do? Probably not. I mean, there's fan favorites that make sense to have because they're fan favorites, and then there's just players that I love you to death, but you just don't fit the system.
Yeah, and then here's another comment here by Frank Ramirez again. He goes, "You hear about L.A.?" He's talking about LaMarcus Aldridge. Yeah, he wants to come back to play after he retired because of his heart issues. He's trying to get the green light from the medical staff to go ahead and give it another go, maybe in the NBA. I wish the guy the best, honestly. Spurs fans that are thinking that, oh, we're going to get him back here. No, we're not. If he comes back, he's going to want to play for a chip. He's going to want to play for a championship contender. More than likely, that's not going to be the San Antonio Spurs. He might sign with the team who originally had signed him after we did, the Nets, at a team-friendly deal. Maybe the veteran minimum, or he could go and play with the Clippers, or he could go play with the Lakers. I mean, sky's the limit for the guy right now. But if you're going to want to win a chip, you're going to want to go with one of those teams, because he's going to have a reduced role. And not only that, but he's going to get back to the playoffs, which I'm sure he misses. He hasn't been there for a little bit now with the San Antonio Spurs. And so Terrence is watching us on Twitter here. And this is the thing that I wanted to ask you about, Josh. What do you think our starting lineup's going to look like? Now that we have this plethora of youth,
it's tough now just because it's still in flux. Like we don't know. I'm assuming they're still going to make moves, but let me look here. I mean, obviously,
our depth position would be what I'll read it real quick. It's Murray, Forbes, and Jones, White, Walker, and Primo, Keldon, Vassell, Aminu, Dougie McBuckets, Doug McDermott, Thaddeus Young, Lucas Amanich. You have Jakob Portal, Jock Landale, and then Zach Collins, not John Collins. So that's kind of what you're kind of looking as far as what your positions look like right now, as far as the roster is shaping up to be. As far as who's going to be starting, it's probably going to be the usual subjects. We're going to have DeJounte, Derek, Jakob, and see what else we're going to do. Maybe. Who's going to take the position now that DeMar DeRozan's not there? Are we going to insert one Lonnie Walker? Who knows?
I mean, it could be McDermott also. When you look at if you need shooting in the starting lineup, as long as it's not Forbes, I think it'll be okay. But there's, I mean, it's kind of too early to tell. I would maybe lean toward. I think McDermott could be a nice starter, but I wouldn't mind Walker being there either. The only thing is Walker just succeeds so much in the second unit. But then again, you take into the account he would succeed because he's not on the floor with DeMar, who needs the ball at the time. Lonnie is great when he's a facilitator and he has the ball in his hands often. So he would still be great as a second unit guy. I'm leaning toward maybe that fifth slot being McDermott. Yeah, but there's options. There's options.
Yeah, we're looking at a comment here. Will Clark watching this from Twitter. He's putting White, DeJounte, Dougie McBuckets, Keldon, and Jakob.
Yeah,
that's
what I have.
Yeah, I could live with that. Honestly, I could live with that. I think that lineup would be okay if you want to tank. Rudy, what do you think?
If you want to compete, I mean, this is the way I would go. I would definitely be starting DeJounte Murray, Doug McDermott, Keldon Johnson, Jakob Poeltl, and my fifth would be Thaddeus Young. I mean, that would be my starting five right there. It gives you the bench of coming up where you can actually slide Lonnie Walker over to the 3 spot. That would give you a Derek White, a Brent Forbes, Lonnie Walker, Doug McDermott, and my fifth would be Thaddeus Young. I mean, that would be my starting five right there. It gives you the bench of coming up where you can actually slide Lonnie Walker over to the 3 spot. That would give you a Derek White, a Brent Forbes, Lonnie Walker, possibly Devin Vassell, and then a Landale or whoever you want as the big guy. I mean, it could be a Simonic, it could be whoever. But I think with that second unit, you get Derek White, who's a really good facilitator, who's a really good scorer. That would free open Bryn Forbes as well. Lonnie Walker also has some help on shooting the ball because he would have Bryn on the other side of the wing for you. But that starting five, I like the starting five of a DeJounte, a Keldon, Doug McDermott, and Thaddeus Young to go along with Jakob Pertl. Basically, what you're doing is with Keldon Johnson, you're getting, and DeJounte, you're able to drive to the basket. You have Doug McDermott out on the outside, which is pretty much almost a guarantee if you can free him open from the outside. Thaddeus Young, being that he's a hard worker, he can play in and out basketball. Makes a lot of sense to put him in that starting five. Also, he's probably one of the more veteran out there. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. He's got more experience. Jakob being out there, hey, Jakob is Jakob. I mean, there's a reason why you have him as your starting center, but I think that lineup is a lineup I would go with. Get you out of the gates pretty quick there. I mean, there's a lot of scoring in that starting five right there.
Yeah, we have a comment here. Craft Beer Bob, he says, Joe, what hat are you wearing? It's a Coyote hat, actually. Everybody always asks me about this hat. I got it at the Spurs fan shop over at the shops at La Cantera. It was just there one time when I went to go and shop for some Spurs gear. I was like, hey, that's a pretty dope hat. So I went ahead and picked it up. I've returned. I have yet to see the hat again. So I don't know if they restocked it or it's just one of those limited runs. So that's where I got the hat. I don't know if it's available online. I mean, you might want to check it out. It's just, the logo, the SA logo for San Antonio, and it has the Spurs Coyote on it. So I got to still get this hat signed by the Coyote one time when I go to the game. So I'm still on the hunt for the Coyote, trying to corner him and kind of bully him into signing the hat for me. So let's go ahead and go to the comments here.
Can I circle back to something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
With Rudy, I'm just curious, like as the roster is constructed now, let's say, I mean, it's going to probably be some changes, but if you had to pick the best player on the Spurs, who would you pick, like overall player?
Overall, right now, are we saying who has the potential to be developed into the best player, or currently right now?
I would say currently right now.
Currently right now, I actually give the nod to Derek White. And the reason being is because he seems to be the only player right now that can consistently score, night to night, not all the time, but consistently score night to night, providing also defensive presence on the other side. So a best two-way player that we have is Derek White. Considering he is that best two-way player that we do have right now, I give him the nod. DeJounte is right there. Keldon is still developing. But if you're looking at, the current best player right now, Derek White has to be that guy. So that's where I kind of give him the nod just because of what he's shown previously in the past compared to DeJounte.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's the most proven. I think Lonnie has potential. There's a lot of players that have potential, but they kind of haven't met that yet. So the reason I was just asking was because, like, you're going to ask him to come off the bench. I mean, I'm sure he'd be okay with it, but is that the best if he's the best two-way player and you're going to want him against the bench unit instead of the starters? I don't know about that being a good.
Well, look at it this way. Look at it this way, Josh. If Derek does come off the bench, that's going to give the team a little bit more balance. Because if you go ahead and load up your starting five, and what's going to happen when that starting five goes to the bench, and then we absolutely get decimated because we don't have anybody to lead that second unit. Especially somebody as prolific as Derek that has, not only the offensive weapons, but the defensive weapons as well,
Well, are you more likely to get decimated by a starting unit or a bench unit? I mean, a starting unit's going to have your stars on it, and the bench unit's going to have, some good players also. But you run the risk of starting off slowly instead of just losing a lead that you might have with Derek on both ends of the floor to start. That's all I'm saying. I think he should have a permanent starting spot unless something crazy happens.
Yeah, we have a comment here. I wanted to read this one. Who was it? Oh, here it is. It's Invins 4239 IN watching us from Twitter right now. He's putting, as far as his starting five, he said that would be DJ, Lonnie, Keldon, Doug, and Jakob. Okay, it's kind of almost what you had said originally, Josh. So
yeah, just no White in there.
Yeah, no White. White would be coming off the bench.
Got to flip those, I think.
There you go.
Well, is
Yeah.
there ever a scenario, because I am one of maybe one fan out there that said I would definitely start Derek White over DeJounte.
You mean putting DeJounte to the bench?
Yeah, I mean I've said it before.
It's a thought.
And we had a comment too. Terrence is watching us from Twitter. Says, "Who would you rather have, Murray or White?"
White.
I would say White also. The only issue is his injuries, but again, it's not really his fault. If he does have another injury-plagued season, my answer might change just because it's costing too much. But at the end of the day, they're on the same team. There's not really a need to pick one over the other.
Yeah.
It's not Shaq and Kobe or anything.
Look, I'd like to share these comments with you right here because this goes to show you the two flip sides of the Spurs fan base right now. Frank Ramirez watching us from Facebook. He says Spurs just might surprise us. He means this coming season they might just surprise us. Then we have VZ, which is watching us from Twitter, and this particular Twitter user says we aren't winning more than 26 games. So that shows you the divide right there between Spurs fans. But you know what, VZ, you're not wrong, brother. You're not wrong. We don't have a legitimate superstar to really help us out on this team. We have a lot of inexperience here. We don't really know what's going to happen come this upcoming season. 26 games is generous.
VZ didn't say all that. He just said they're not winning more. You don't think they're going to win more than 26 games, Joe?
I think they're not going to match their last season's total. Let's put it like that.
That's different. That's different. I was like 33.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to win that.
VZ also said, I believe that the front office is incompetent, which is just kind of an easy talking point for just a disgruntled Spurs fan.
I like your style,
really
VZ.
accurate.
I like your style.
You think they're incompetent too, Joe?
What do you think, Rudy? You think they're going to win more than 26 games?
Man, it's so hard to determine that right now. But
what does your heart tell you?
If I'm a betting man, I would probably take the over, but very reluctantly take the over 26. I think that you're looking at a 27 to 29 win team possibly. So not by much, but I mean, the thing that I've come to realize being a Atlanta Falcon fan is you just expect mediocrity and don't expect.
You told us all we needed to know. You're a Falcons fan.
So you've got a young team. I mean, unless you pull the trigger for a Ben Simmons, where you'll probably start to looking at the 34, 35 win range if you pull off a trade for a Ben Simmons, depending on who you give up, to say 26, 27 wins is probably realistic. I mean, there's probably maybe 2 or 3 teams on paper that are probably not as good as the Spurs in the West. So, I mean, one of them being Minnesota, but even Minnesota looks pretty good. The other one, Sacramento, still looks pretty good. I mean, definitely no Golden State's going to look amazing.
Look at what VZ's saying. He's kind of got a point here, and I'm not saying that he's right, but I'm not saying that he's wrong. He's saying, with all due respect, the front office has only delayed the inevitable tank. This should have happened in 2018. I get what he's saying. Basically, what he's saying is that the team should have had a clear direction of where they wanted to go. Basically, they've been just good enough to stay afloat, and almost, get into the playoffs, but they're not that good to make it. But they're still circling outside of getting a really good top pick in the draft, where they're just sitting at that level of mediocrity, And I get what he's saying. If they would have had a clear direction, then they could have possibly gotten higher draft picks, and this team would have already been in a full rebuild while they were just in a reloaded phase. Now with the veterans leaving, this is a full it's going to be full on rebuild,
Yeah. I mean, I totally get that. That's valid. That's all correct. They should have been doing that in 2018. They should have traded LaMarcus or DeMar or both whenever they had more value. They still ended up getting stuff out of DeMar, which is good. But yeah, that's all true. And they should have been doing this from the beginning. As a result, they haven't made the playoffs 2 years in a row. Now it's 2021. Now he got 3 2022 picks so far. Got a 2025 I believe, second
Two
rounder.
2025 picks.
Yes.
One's a first, one's a second.
Yes. Reloaded on shooting. Got rid of the vets that were holding the young guys down. We got McDermott. We got Landale. Not saying they're all like these huge names, but at this point, why are we still talking about what they should have done in 2018? Yes, it's valid.
Yeah.
It's true. It's all true. But to just say that still this offseason they're not doing anything toward going one direction or another, that's just, what do you want him to do? He's not just going to be able to get LeBron over here.
You know who I blame for all this debacle? Rudy knows who we blame for all this. It's nephew's fault. It's Kawhi.
Oh, yeah.
Rudy, what do you think about what the Spurs have done as far as collecting picks? They have a clear direction of, more of a clear direction of where the team is going. What do you think about all this?
Do they really have a clear direction?
Well, they're getting younger, so they got some picks set up for the future. To me, it's a clear sign of a rebuild.
But they're second round picks. I'd feel more confident if I was Sam Presti and I had first round picks galore.
You had like 20 first round picks.
Yeah, but let me go back on something here about the tanking part before I answer this, because I don't think fans realize when you mention the word tank, you've got to be in a huge market to tank. Why? Because if you can look me straight in the eye and tell me you're going to go buy some damn tickets to every game, knowing that they're a shit show, then I will believe you. And you know what? Go ahead and tank. But if you lose supportive fans and you don't sell out these games because your product sucks, guess what? Las Vegas could take this team and not have to worry about making money while you're tanking.
Or Seattle, Rudy.
Anywhere. Any other city that wants an NBA team can take it, and they can basically say, you know what? We don't care if you win 5 games a year. We're going to get picks. We're going to be in this rebuild with you. We're gonna enjoy it because we have a team. But if you want the Spurs to tank, you better expect yourself to pay for those damn tickets. Because if you can't sell tickets, then why in the hell are the Spurs here? They're going to try to put the best product out there. They can't just tank because we are not New York City. We are not Dallas. We're not these big old cities where we can afford a team to tank. They've got to put the best product out there to make sure that fans will support, whether it is a 50-win season or a 15-win season. They've got to make it exciting.
So with that said, I don't think you're buying your Spurs season tickets this year. How Rudy?
No, well, I've never owned season tickets, so I'm one person that can say, but I do support the franchise in any way possible. But for everybody that wants to tank, you cannot just tank. This is a different market. That's so plain as day. It's a different market here. You cannot tank. Yes, you want to get the number 1 pick. Yes, you want to get free agents. Free agents do not line up to come to San Antonio. So therefore, you cannot tank. You can bet. And then not only that, how many times are you going to get a Tim Duncan? How many times are you going to get a David Robinson?
Or a Manu?
They're not out there. You see more Dwight Howard, Greg Oden players drafted number 1 than you do a Tim Duncan and David Robinson. So
thank you.
What does tanking do? Tanking says, oh, we get the number 1 pick. This guy's going to be the savior. No, we don't even know if Cade Cunningham's the savior of Detroit. We don't know. These players come in, you expect them to be one thing, and more times than not, they are not that player. They're just an average superstar. They're not a franchise player. And that's what I don't understand about the tanking part. But as far as what the Spurs are doing in the offseason, to me, it was a great offseason. It's going to make them compatible. It's going to make them they're going to be able to compete, basically, with every team. Are they going to win every game? Hell no, they're not going to win every game.
No.
Are they, going to land a superstar maybe later on down the line? Possibly so. But what they're going to do is they're still going to play the way that we all know that's the Spurs way. They're going shooting this way. Obviously, they're not going to go defense. Spurs in the past have been defensive-minded teams. This year, it looks like it's going to be run and gun, take 3 whenever you can. Let's try to outscore an opponent.
They're going to be fun to watch.
Some teams in the league.
They're going to be fun to watch, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win a ton of games. No,
and that's fine. But they've got to put a team out there that can be competitive. If they compete night in and night out and still only win 5 games, you'll see more fans respected, more fans at the games because they're competing. Well, then you can go to get the number 1 pick.
Check out what VZ says. he says something that
What's
you
that?
always say, Rudy, all the time, you know, and
Hmm.
I think you and him are on the same wavelength. I think you and
Hmm.
VZ are spirit animals, man. So let's
Probably.
look what it says. He says, "I'll go ahead
He's
and put
typing it himself. I think Rudy's on his.
right. You're
I think he's
VZ,
on his
Rudy."
burner.
VZ says, "Let's face it, Spurs fans, myself included, are spoiled, and they aren't
Yeah, no
going
kidding.
willing to pay those ticket prices. In other words, going to games and paying those ticket prices. You've been
No.
very vocal about the ticket prices as far as what the Spurs are charging to go see a game, and it's kind of steep at times. You know, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, unless you're, upper middle class, and you got some scratch, you're not going to these games. I mean, just to go bare minimum to go and have a good time, you're going to need at least $100, you know,
Hmm.
because the food is not cheap and neither is the beer, you know.
No. So to land big time free agents, you've got to sell these seats. And what we've seen lately is ticket sales have not been great. They've not been awesome. They're sold out, but a sellout is considered what, 65-70% of the arena sold. I mean, that's not a complete sellout from when we were big time in the
A
Tim
lot of
Duncan
empty
Manu
seats this
area,
season.
Dave Robinson era, all that stuff. So
Yeah,
I mean, scream and bitch all you want for LeBron James and Kevin Durant to come to San Antonio, but don't scream and bitch when the ticket prices are 5 times what they are right now, because you have to pay those players to come to San Antonio. They don't come just based off of what's in the Holtz bank account. They come based off, okay, we're bringing you in, we'll pay you this much. Oh, hey, fans, that beer that cost you $8 is now $18
yeah,
because we got to make that money somewhere. And that's what it comes down to.
yeah. I get it. I get what VZ's saying. He says if middle income class fans, he put, aren't willing to go, what makes you think lower income fans are going to go? And I get that, because I'm saying ticket prices right now are just exuberant to go and watch a game. And on top of that, you got to pay for parking, and if you don't get a parking pass, a lot of fans don't know if you're going to buy your tickets, buy a parking pass. It costs the same amount as if you get there and you pay $20 and then you go and park in no man's land. Just pay the $20, get lot 3. Lot 3 parking is really good parking. You park and you walk straight into the arena. I know because I always do that, you know? So if you're going to buy tickets, get lot 3 parking, buy the parking pass as well. You're going to be a lot more happier for it because you're not walking almost a quarter mile, to get to the arena. And sometimes it's hot, or it's raining or it's cold. I mean, that's a walk, dude. I ain't going to lie. But either
I
way,
guess
man, go ahead.
what I would ask for anybody that's kind of like unhappy with what's been going on this off season is, what would you like, if you want to comment or something, what would you realistically have done differently this off season? Let's not talk about 2018 or 2019. I'm just curious because I really want to know. I'm not saying you're wrong or anything, but what would you have done differently other than shed the vets, get picks, get some assets to use in the future, and set up your young core? I'm honestly, I want to know what could realistically have been different so far, because I don't feel like he got hit a home run or anything, but I also don't feel like the front office is just twiddling their thumbs.
And you're asking me or
So,
Rudy?
I mean, no, I'm just asking in general. Anybody that's maybe VZ,
Yeezy.
anybody that's kind of down on, or Joe, if you feel like they haven't done enough, what would you have done differently?
Here's the thing, though. This is, again, Spurs fans have to realize one thing. These NBA superstars have to want to come to play here, and I just don't think that the Spurs are doing enough to entice, big name free agents to want to come play for this team. Yes, you can throw a ton of money at them, but ultimately at the end of the day, they're gonna want to have to come and play with this team. Right now, this team is in a rebuilding kind of phase, where if somebody comes and they're used to always going into the second round of the playoffs, and seeing if they can go further than that, then all of a sudden you're the man, you come to San Antonio and you're missing the playoffs. You're doing all you can plus more. I mean, you're working hard, trying to put this team on your back and trying to get to the promised land, and you come up short. It hurts, you get
Yeah,
humbled, because you were the man. But it's different in the Western Conference, because if we look at the Spurs and where they're at right now, every other team in front of them is getting better, and the Spurs slowly are just digressing. Right now, what would you say, Rudy? Minnesota Timberwolves, Are they better than us? Or are we just a hair above them?
If you don't give my address out, I'll definitely tell you my honest opinion. Um, on paper, the Timberwolves are a better team right now. On paper, they are. I think coaching has a lot to do with it. I think Pop is definitely way better than what Minnesota offers on the bench. But if you look at it on paper, right now, Minnesota is better than what the Spurs are. There's a lot of teams, a majority of teams are better than what the Spurs are on paper right now. And there's no hiding that fact. And one simple thing to remember is people say, well, you can force a trade. You can give up X and Y and Z and bring this superstar here, like a Ben Simmons. Well, let me remind you, we did that with a DeMar DeRozan, and he didn't stick around. He didn't want to stick around. Those kinds of superstars, you're right. They're used to a winning organization, and you're coming to a winning organization, but that was a winning organization, not a current contender, not a current winning organization.
Sure.
So these guys are basically rentals. You're praying to God in that 4-year rental that you're going to get to the conference finals or the title, the championship, NBA championship game. You're trying to get there, but if it doesn't work out, chances of these guys leaving are very, very high. I mean, they want a chance to compete for a title year in and year out. I don't know of any player who's a superstar in the league that comes in and says, I want to make $30 million a year and I don't care if I win 2 games. No. Why? Because these guys have incentives, man. They get incentives for making the playoffs. They get incentives for winning the title, for this and for that.
And for their stats while they're in the playoffs too.
Yeah. Their $20 million is not $20 million in pay. It's like they're getting $20 million. So who cares if they lose the game? No. Their pay is $15 million or $12 million. But if you get to the playoffs, it's another million. If you get to this, it's another million. It's $500,000 for this. It adds up to $20 million a year. So these guys have to compete and want to be in a situation where they can win. Also, real quick, Pop. I love Pop to death. I don't think he should leave.
No.
Nothing like that. This is all on him. But with everybody saying, LeBron says he'd love to play for Pop. Kevin Durant says, I'd love to play for Pop. Pop's the greatest. Yeah. What you say and your actions are totally different. You can say you want to play for Pop, but when they get to San Antonio, they understand Pop's boot camp and Pop's system is something they do not want to go through.
Look what's going on with Team USA. Perfect example.
A perfect example. You can play for Pop. Yeah, you can say you want to, but you can't handle the rigorous camps that Pop puts on. LaMarcus Aldridge was one of them. He was a superstar before he got San Antonio. He got here, and it just didn't work out. Superstars tend to not work out in San Antonio. It's a kind of a proven fact already.
But look what Pop has.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, look what Pop has done, though, with Team USA. While they complained and they griped, he got a lot of flack for what he was doing with Team USA. His coaching skills were in question. Regardless of all that, he still got the team in the gold medal game. So the system does work. But the problem is you have to have the right personnel around you, the right players that are going to buy into that mindset to go ahead and make this successful. It's not for everyone, I get that.
Mm-hmm. No, you've got to be the right player. And I love Team USA. I love the Olympics. I watch as much as I can, but it's like coaching the All-Star game. You get a bunch of guys in there. They're going to want to do their own thing. And the same thing with Team USA. These guys, they only know one way of playing, and that's the way that they're accustomed to. You can't expect a coach to come in and just basically say, we're going to play this way of basketball. We're going to play the beautiful game. We're going to play defensive. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. No, these guys are going to throw you the middle finger behind your back and say, we're here to play our way, and that's it. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to.
Hey, man, VZ wants to come on the podcast. He says, bruh, get me on this podcast. He says, me, you, Rudy, Josh. He goes, need to have a frank discussion. Maybe
he's already on, man. It's Rudy, I'm telling you.
Yeah, we need to bring Easy on. Maybe we'll just clear the room and just let him and Josh go at it.
I mean, I kind of see now. I was looking through. I mean, they seem to be saying that the Spurs should have been tanking with this offseason. So if you're going for tanking, then yes, they did not do a good job. I agree there. So we can agree on that. Brian Wright did a horrible job if the Spurs are trying to tank.
Yeah, I think
So
what
we
what
can agree.
I think what Spurs fans have the biggest gripe about, or the biggest issue about, is like free agency, for example. Not free agency, but the draft, for example, that just happened. Houston did a stellar job, in their front office there, in making these moves. They moved up, they got rid of picks. They gave away their future basically to go ahead and start rebuilding the team the right way, and getting those assets that they needed to compete in the West. The Spurs, we're going to stand pat. We're going to go ahead and just keep our pick at number 12. They got Primo, and then Wieskamp. Okay, I like the Wieskamp pick more than I was a fan of the Primo pick. We just don't know what's going to happen with Primo. I get that. But, the Knicks had 19 and 21 out there, and then you look and see what Houston did, and they moved, further down in the draft here, and they were still able to get some of these players that were still available. And now you look on paper and they're like, wow, they have a really decent roster on paper. How are these players actually going to develop? How are they going to, help the team come this coming season? We don't know yet, but on
Yeah.
paper, they made great strides in getting their team better. So I understand the logic behind that when you look at the Spurs and seeing what they do year end and year out when it comes to the NBA draft, and nothing happens. It's the same old, same old. Spurs fans are kind of getting tired of that. They want the team to make some moves to get better every season, and I think they're doing the best possible job they can do in the absence of one, Kawhi Leonard, who kind of messed up everything, threw a little wrench in the sockets here.
Yeah, let's all remember this. This is all his fault.
It is his fault.
It really is. They would not have been anywhere near this position if he wasn't such a diva.
Yeah. So I mean, it is what it is. They're trying to do the best that they can with all the debacle that was Kawhi. Yeah, I mean, we lost DeMar, but I mean, we got what we could for him. Where there were other picks out there, and they're like, well, they should have done this, they should have done that. We can't go back and change history. It is what it is. At this point, they made a decision. We move forward. While we don't have DeMar here anymore, we do have Jakob, we do have Keldon. So I mean, we could have been left with nothing.
Right.
So at least we have something in return. So I mean, you have to look at it from both sides of the coin. I understand how frustrating it is to Spurs fans. At this point, there's a clear direction, I think, and that is it's gonna hurt. I've been telling Spurs fans about this for the last 2 seasons. It's gonna hurt. You want the youth movement to come full circle. It's here. And you saw it already hurting for these last 2 seasons. Now that we don't even have an NBA All-Star, it's really, really going to hurt them this season. Will the Spurs make the playoffs? I don't really think they can. And that's just me being realistic. If they go ahead and do make the playoffs and they are vying in for that playing game, to me, they've exceeded expectations, and good on them. I think the team might be in a good situation, moving forward. They're going to still need an NBA All-Star at some point. We'll see what happens, So closing thoughts here, guys. We'll go ahead and go around the horn. Josh, what do you think about the Spurs' future at this point? Are you excited to see the growth and development of these young players, or this young core?
Yeah, I mean, it's really just about finding a balance between realistic expectations and just being a fan of the team. There's too many people that are just kind of always down on everything, and it's not at a certain point you're not really enjoying the game, you're not enjoying the team anymore. They're supposed to be your team for a reason. You're going to support them through these rough times, because this season is very likely not going to be great at all. So for me, the way I approach it, I've been a fan since 1997. So I mean, I've been able to enjoy 5 titles, so I kind of have a different perspective as somebody that just started following the team maybe 7 or 8 years ago. So it's just about appreciating what they're trying to do now, what they've done over the offseason. They're heading toward one direction. It's going to take they're going to have some issues. I don't see them being a playoff team either, like you said. But it's just more fun to just enjoy and look at this young core that they have. There's a lot of talent there. To assume anything about none of them can ever be an all-star, none of them are ever going to be a star, none of them are ever going to amount to anything, is just doing the disservice to the whole system, to the Spurs organization as a whole. And it's just annoying. So just kind of be a fan, enjoy games. They're not going to win a lot maybe, but just support them as you can, as a fan, as somebody that can say that your favorite team. And if you want to criticize them, that's perfectly fine. But I'm also just gonna talk back and say, they're doing their thing, and
Make
it's
sure
gonna
they
be
spell
tough.
their name right too.
I mean, yeah, you can kind of tell the trolls from the real diehard fans that are just frustrated, and I feel like we're seeing just frustrated fans all
Yeah.
over here and everywhere. So I understand it. Just give them some time. I know they've had a couple years now, but this is really the time where they made moves where you can really see what they're trying to do. So get through this year, and good luck.
Yeah, for real. Good luck. And if you know what, I know how it is, man. It's gonna hurt this year. If you see me at a Spurs game and you're there, come say hi. I'll buy you a beer. We can hug it out and cry together. You know.
Yeah.
And Rudy, here in closing, what do you got to say? Expectations for this coming season, realistically, and are you going to be excited to see the growth of the young core?
God, you really put me in a bad spot there. Um, Expectations, it's like every year. It's title or bust, man. Title or bust. Doesn't
No,
matter. Are they
man.
gonna win the title? No, they're not gonna win the title. But the expectations are like I've been telling fans the past few years, and even on I've been on your show for the past few years over it. You've got to go into the season with low expectations. Tim Duncan is not going to walk through that arena curtain. No Manu, no Tony, no Kawhi, no Robinson, no nobody, no big time superstar is going to walk through that arena curtain. So keep the expectation low. It'll help being a fan. Like I said, I've been fans of terrible teams before. Having low expectations going into the season does help a lot. But like Josh said, enjoy the season. Just enjoy it. Everybody cried about wanting the youth movement. And like we said before, you got it now. So since you wanted it, you got it. Go support it. For me, the youth movement, I've already seen a lot of these guys already throughout the years. Um, to be honest, I think some of them might have already, hit their ceiling at one already or very close to it.
Are you trying to call out
But
Luca?
no, no, no. Actually, Luke is one that I still don't. I haven't even seen him scratch the
Okay,
surface
so
yet. To
you're
be honest
talking
with
about
you,
Lonnie then.
Lonnie Walker's right about there. He's right about there. Dejounte as well. He still has some improvement, but a lot of these guys like Derek White, I mean, they're not gonna make like these Giannis Antetokounmpo leaps and bounds where he's okay, and all of a sudden he's boom, he's a big time player.
They're world
They don't
beaters.
show they don't show expectations like that every season. You would be able to see it during the season. They don't really show that. So the development of guys like Aluka, like Keldon, like Devin, seeing Primo, how he ends up playing, working out for us, stuff like that. That's where I'm curious to see how the season goes and just enjoy it, man. Sit back, enjoy it. If you go to the games, go to the games, support them. Walk in there, just look at the players, support the players. If not the team, if they're losing, if they're on a 15-game losing streak, who cares? Maybe Valero will start giving away free coffee
Oh,
for a not
they're
loss
Circle
instead of
K
a
now. They're
win.
not
I mean,
Valero no more. They're
maybe we
the
can hit up Valero every day now, make it seem worth it. Hey, or who knows? Maybe Pop will bring out the big
Run out
old
of coffee.
cardboard cutout and start tearing off pieces of clothing or something. Who knows? Like they did in Major League.
Oh God.
It's just about enjoying the season, man. You got to enjoy the season coming up. Just keep the expectations low, and everything will be fine.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Just we don't know what to expect going into the season, but I mean, I'm just glad that we're going to be able to enjoy basketball. That's it. That's the play. I'm going to be able to enjoy basketball once again. I'm a steward of the game. I like the San Antonio Spurs. They're my team for better or for worse, but I also enjoy watching other teams play as well and watching matchups. Especially watching some of these elite teams go up against each other. So I'm going to be watching that as well. It's just not a one-sided affair. I support basketball as a whole. So I'm looking forward to the return of that. And also we got the NFL season that's fast approaching. And unfortunately for me and Rudy, it's going to be another tough season because Rudy is a Falcons fan and I am a Dallas Cowboy fan. So I feel your pain, brother. I really
It
do.
shouldn't be that bad for the Cowboys. Not this year,
Oh
actually.
man, I don't know, dude. Dak still can't participate in a full practice, full on practice because of his injury. So I don't know, dude.
The defense looks a lot better, though. I will say, with Dan Quinn, the defense looks a
Man,
hell of a
not
lot
that
better.
secondary. They ain't done nothing to help that secondary.
You'll be surprised with the additions of Malik Hooker and Keanu Neal. You'll definitely be surprised. It'll be better. It'll be a lot better.
I don't know, man. I seen our corners get burnt a lot last season. I expect that to happen again this season.
Well, the good thing is Toast Terrence Newman is not there anymore. He hasn't been there for a while. So,
Joe, you're being a real VZ right now.
Hey, man, I'm just telling you, dude. I'm tired of losing, man. If you know what, now, huh? Spurs fans think they're tired of losing. You try being a Dallas Cowboy fan. You want to watch your highlights, you got to get a VCR, and get the VHS out. Really, I mean, come on now. We can endure losing for this long. This has to be something that Spurs fans can get over pretty quickly. It wasn't that long ago that we won a chip.
The Atlanta Falcons are the only team I am a huge fan of that have never won a title.
Well, you know what? It's hard to recover as a Falcons fan when your team goes to the Super Bowl, has the lead, twice, and then chokes it away.
Yikes! I was actually getting over that, so I appreciate you bringing it up right now.
Yeah, let's talk about 2013 finals while we're at it, Joe.
Why do you got to bring up old shit for, Josh?
You have a big foot, and you just kicked me in the nuts and got both. So, congrats.
Oh Lord. So anyway, we have the NFL season right around the corner, and we also have the NBA season that's going to get started here pretty soon. The Spurs did, in fact, just release their NBA preseason schedule, and they are going to be starting playing in the AT&T Center, I believe, on Monday, October the 8th. I think the tip-off was 7 or 7:30 against our old nemesis, Rudy Gay and the Utah Jazz. They're going to come a-calling. Yeah, so I think that's a game that we're going to have to go and check out, Josh, Rudy. If y'all are free, maybe we can go check out that little preseason game. Maybe we can get a seat upgrade again from the Spurs Twitter peeps, Josh, like we did last time. Sitting in that private balcony was a big upgrade from where we were.
Yeah, I might have tickets already through the other thing I do, but we'll see. Hopefully we can make it out in some way.
Yeah, well, hopefully you get to come and see it as a fan, and you're not there to work the game,
Yeah, we'll see.
All right, man. So do you all have anything coming up here for Project Spurs or Air Alamo here, Josh?
Yeah, well, potentially. I mean, I'm always writing stuff pretty much daily. I believe I just put out one about the current roster, just kind of updating and what I think the depth chart's going to be. I also just talked about how the Spurs stopped DeMar DeRozan from going to the Clippers. They kind of had a hand on it by agreeing to the deal pretty quickly with the Bulls. So if you want to read about that, it was from a report from Chris Haynes this morning. Other than that, yeah, just follow me at Josh810 on Twitter. I am hopefully going to be writing a scathing piece about the people that have been criticizing Coach Pop. And it will probably be, I believe the game's tomorrow night around 9:30 or 10 or something.
Please tell me you're going to have KP in there, Kendrick Perkins.
Oh, I will. I will have Kendrick Perkins, and he is in my line of fire, and it's going to be swift. Yeah, I have a lot of ammo. Go ahead.
No, every time I see that guy on TV, I just hit the mute button. He's just an idiot, man.
Yeah, I mean, he's in there. There's a guy from The Athletic that has been targeting Pop ever since he embarrassed himself trying to talk to Pop in a press conference.
Oh, my God.
And he's going to be my main focus. But again, Team USA needs to get it done and win gold tomorrow night. And then I will have that post probably pretty soon after because I'm already working on it because I am that confident. But France is going to be tough. They already beat them. I might still find a way to get it up and just maybe have it as a hit piece on him, not about the gold medal. We'll see because I'm already working on it. But yeah, at Josh810 on Twitter. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and Team USA is going to have it come full circle because France beat them in the first game. Now they're going to be in the gold medal game, and they're going to have a chance to knock out France again. And if they win the gold medal. France knocked out Luka Doncic and the Slovenian team by one freaking point on a last-second block. What a way to go, man.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel for the kid. He's going to be playing now against Australia for the bronze, So, I mean, they look so good, too, the Slovenian team. So, man, that's a tough loss. One loss and then, boom, you're out, And then you have the USA who lost once and now they're in the gold medal round. So, Hopefully, Team USA can get it together. But the last thing they want to do against France is start falling behind by double digits because France has a really solid team. So interesting to see what's going to transpire there. But Rudy, closing thoughts here. Do you have anything you'd like to share with us as far as maybe an upcoming episode of the Sweep the League?
Actually, with the football season already kicking off tonight, actually with the preseason game with the Steelers and Cowboys for the Hall of Fame game, we're going to be working on some NFL stuff. Definitely, our fantasy football picks are going to be coming up. Tons of fantasy football drafts that we're going to be talking about. Also, we're going to be doing our team and division previews. So we're going to have all that here coming up soon. Probably starting next week. We might see a little bit this weekend being released, but that's kind of what we're doing right now, getting ready, hopefully, for some exciting news coming out to share with everybody. So once all that details are worked out, and once we get the final go, we'll be able to share all the exciting stuff coming from Sweep the League. So it's pretty exciting times right now. Football's back, and for the Spurs fans, hey, it's going to be a tough season, but remember, football goes all the way to February, so that pretty much helps you get over the fact that the Spurs may not be great this season.
Oh, there you go. And you can also follow me at Two Shots Podcast, all spelled out TWO, Two Shots Podcast. And we also have some great stuff coming out here for Project Spurs. So make sure you go ahead and check out projectspurs.com for all the latest Spurs news from the great, talented staff of writers that they have out there. I know our good friends, too, over at Spurscast and Paul Garcia and Colin. They had Colin Reed. They're going to have a new episode that's going to be dropping probably later on this weekend. So make sure you go and check out our good friends over at projectspurs.com. So for Josh Paredes and Rudy Campos Jr., I'm Joe Garcia. Thank you guys for watching another episode of the Two Shots Podcast. And like we always say, spread the love, stop the hate, and be kind. We're out. Peace.